Hey, Ante,
Hey, Rachel.
what do you know about Japanese office culture?
Enough to stay away from it.
Smart man.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
Welcome to the waiting room.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the waiting room.
I'm quite the interesting chapette, Rachel, and this is...
I'm Ante. Still don't have a catchphrase. I'm thinking, hang on.
Wait.
Maybe I can still.
I was going to say, is that, were you going to make that your catchphrase? Still don't have a catchphrase?
I don't have. Every week will be like a really bad one that I can think of.
There you go.
So it's like, I'm Ante. Your man in Japan.
There you go.
That can. It's pretty bad.
You want to do that? Want to do that one more time? Do one more take of that?
One more take?
One more take. Take two.
Welcome to the waiting room. I'm Ante. Your man in Japan. That can.
That was good. That was really good.
Not too bad, eh?
Yeah.
We're also brought to you by our sponsor.
AM Laser Made.
Yeah. Because
Your company in Japan that can.
it can. We'll make the cut. Get it? Because I use laser cutters.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Moving swiftly along. Well, Ante, it's the holiday season,
Cheers.
and to celebrate, we are talking about Japanese office culture.
That works.
Festive.
Okay.
Very festive.
Yep.
So I know there are probably a lot of YouTube videos and podcasts about Japanese office culture that exist already.
Mhm.
But I'm kind of here to give my 2 cents and talk about my experience because I have worked in not one, but 2 Japanese offices
Mhm.
plus a dentist office.
So lucky.
I know. So I
Sounds
have
great.
a lot of interesting experiences with office culture, but first, let me talk about what comes to your mind
Mhm.
when you hear the phrase Japanese office culture.
Japanese office culture. First thing that comes to my mind is a lot of work,
Yes.
a lot of overtime,
Mm-hmm.
working to death. I think there's a Japanese word for
Do you
that
have
as
any
well.
positive ideas?
Not at the moment. And the
Nothing?
other stereotype is
Mhm.
I see the thinking the drinking culture, and I always visual the Japanese salaryman or businessman
Mhm.
with the tie around his forehead
Around
after
the
he's had a
forehead.
few drinks.
Yeah, well, there's a shot of that on the thumbnail,
Yeah.
actually.
Oh, okay.
A
Cool.
depiction. So I would say those are pretty, fairly stereotypical, ideas
Am I
about.
right?
I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Put it that way, you're not wrong. So before we get into the ins and outs of do's and don'ts of Japanese office culture, Ante, you used to work at a bank in
Yes.
Sydney, Australia.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about Australian office culture?
Australian office culture.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I haven't really experienced the Japanese culture here, so
Mhm.
I can't go off that. But Australian office culture, depending on where you work, can be pretty laid back, I feel.
What do you mean by laid back?
Well, if you know what you're doing your job, no one's really going to bother you, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, you can still be pretty busy. If you got a good office environment and a good, the people always make a difference, right?
I think that applies no matter where you are in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's not where you work, it's who you're working with.
Yeah.
Right?
Rush hour.
Mm-hmm. Were you commuting by car or?
Yeah, because where I was working in the bank, if I was to go by train, I'd literally have to catch a train to go into the city.
Mm-hmm.
But I was working in like a secondary city in Sydney, like a smaller, like it's a big city, but smaller.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd have to catch a train to the city to go to the other city.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it was just quicker for me to hop in the
Go
car.
by car. And how long was that commute in the morning?
Easy an hour,
Ooh,
give or take.
an hour. And then an hour
So,
back as well, or?
exactly, which is really different to what I have now, right?
How long is your commute now?
So we're actually in my office now. It takes me a good 1 minute walk, which can be quicker if I'm not waiting for the crossing
1
sign.
minute if there's traffic.
If there's traffic, yeah.
I mean, you can't really beat that, honestly.
No. But hey, I did my time.
You did.
Hour to and back, and that's like just when I was working at the bank. So
Mhm.
even before when I was working in the city as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked in a few like call centers and that.
Mhm.
It was the same thing. Another hour to and from.
I think that's kind of the norm for a lot of places.
Yeah.
In fact, depending on where you are in the world,
Mhm.
and we'll get into that a little bit later. But
Yeah.
So that's sort of the office culture that you experienced.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you have not worked in an office here in Japan, am I correct?
No, just mine.
Just yours.
I like mine. There's no one here. It's great.
It's the chillest of office cultures.
Yeah.
All right, let's get stuck into it. First of all, so let's talk about the word salaryman, which you already used.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when a friend of my brother's came to Japan,
Yeah.
shout out to Jason, who's probably not listening, but if you are, hello.
Hey, Jason.
So Jason came to Hiroshima
Mm.
with his girlfriend,
Mhm.
and I took them out. And Jason, he looks at me and he goes, Rachel, what are these salary men? What is a salary man?
Almost sounded like a
Which
like a
is a-
superhero or a
yeah.
mythical beast. Or
It's a really good question because salaryman is essentially the blanket Japanese term for a man who works in an office.
Yeah.
He works for a salary. Therefore, he is a salary man.
Yeah.
And, you see them on the streets in their suits with their little briefcases. And, that's what a salary man is. There's another term, quite a dated term,
Yeah.
that applies to the women who work in offices.
Oh, okay.
Have you heard this one before?
No.
OL, office
OL.
lady. This is a very dated term.
Wow.
I
Okay.
don't think they use them anymore.
Right.
But OL is an office lady, so a woman who works in an office. And generally, the stereotypical idea of an office lady is they have sort of a uniform, so
yeah.
like a knee-length pencil skirt,
Yep.
kind of like a vest, a white blouse,
Yep.
maybe a little kerchief.
Mhm.
And that's your stereotypical office lady sort of like idea.
OL.
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 Yeah. So I worked in 3 offices, like I said. The
Yeah.
first was an office at a university,
Mhm.
at Hiroshima University. My second office is my current job, which is at Hiroshima City Hall.
Yep.
And the third office was the dentist office, which is an office, but not in that kind of
Okay.
traditional office sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, I want you to imagine the layout of this room
Mhm.
that I work in, my division.
Should I close my eyes?
Yeah, close your eyes.
Okay.
Now picture a big empty room. Okay?
Like my brain.
Yeah,
Done.
there you go. So we're going to add some tables to this room.
Mm.
Let's say you have 5 tables that are all grouped together.
Yep.
Okay? So this group of tables, they call it shima, which means island.
Mhm.
And these groups of tables are desks. These are your desks, right? And you usually your team or your division has about 3 or 4 separate sort of islands where people are working.
Yep.
There are no cubicles. There's no dividers. Everybody can see what you are doing. And everybody can see when you sort of nod off or fall asleep.
Right. Yeah.
So Japanese offices are quite open in that there are no cubicles,
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
except for like the big boss. So like the head of the department will sort of have their own office,
Yep.
which is usually partitioned off. It's not like a separate like room. It's just like partitions.
I'm guessing it has a good view though of everyone, or depending on how big the
No,
boss
actually,
is. Or
because generally, like since they're partitioned off, they can't really see anybody.
Oh, okay. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
So basically, there are no cubicles, open floor plan.
Mhm.
And I remember one time when I was working at Hiroshima University, I usually like 2 or 3, I get really like tired if I'm not like really engaged in work,
Yeah.
and I would kind of be like dozing off.
Yeah.
And one of my coworkers at the time, she pulled me aside and she was like, Rachel, are you okay? Are you like sick? Like you keep falling asleep and nodding off. Like, are you all right? And I was just like, no, I'm just tired.
Sick of work.
So how does that compare to the offices where you worked in Australia? Did you have cubicles or?
Yeah. So I was about to say we were kind of open plan
Mhm.
like that. So in particular with even the call centers and the bank. So kind of like that island thing.
Interesting.
The island setup was kind of not necessarily a rectangle shape, right?
Mhm.
So it's like kind of a strange shape. So you'd kind of be sitting
Like a
next to
decahedron?
somebody. One of those. How many sides is that, people?
10.
I mean, you
Oh, sorry.
give me another one. What's another strange shape? Anyway,
I don't know.
back to the office. Yeah, so we still kind of had the island thing. The islands did have partitions.
Mhm.
So if you'd want to talk to someone, you stick your head up. kind of thing like that.
yeah.
So, yeah, but it was still kind of an open plan thing. And then, yeah, the bigger bosses would kind of be hidden in the corners.
Hidden in the corners.
Even though it was kind of open,
Mhm.
they'd have like their backs to the wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have no partitions.
Mhm.
So like you have your computer in front of you,
Yep.
which can sometimes sort of hide what you're doing,
Mhm.
but they're very open plans. And so another thing that is quite common. So when you would have like a lunch break
Mm.
in your office, would you go out to eat or did you have like a break room or?
Yeah. So that just really depended on the mood kind of thing. So
Mhm.
yeah, we had a break room. And then it just depended. It's like, did I bring in lunch?
There you go.
And then usually it was a Friday thing, like amongst like friends, be like, then we'd probably go out to like
Mhm.
a small restaurant or something,
Mhm.
or then get takeaway kind of. Yeah.
So if you went and got takeaway and brought it
Mm.
back, where would you eat in the office?
Yep. In the designated break room.
In the break
So there
room.
were, yeah.
So there's no break room in the Japanese offices I worked in. You eat at your desk.
Okay.
So if you don't go out for lunch,
Yeah.
you literally you sort of shove your keyboard a little bit to the back or you shove your laptop a little bit to the back and you have lunch at your desk. Which generally, because whenever I bring in like soup or whatever,
Yeah.
I'm not really like the most delicate of eaters, and it'll be like little soup splashes on like
I
paperwork
was
and
going to say, so yeah, you push the keyboard aside, then set up a nice partition.
yeah,
Okay.
I really need a partition
Yeah.
because there's always some kind of like, I don't know, a little bit of like whatever food gets stuck on
Paper
something.
all over.
Yeah,
Like, why are we always running low on fax paper? Sorry.
because I keep spilling soup on it. Yeah, so eating at your desk is like a thing
Yeah.
that people do. They also have like bento lunch delivery services
mhm.
that'll deliver lunches to your office.
Yeah.
And you can like have it taken out of your paycheck
Yeah.
as well,
That's not bad.
which is like it's an interesting service.
Expensive at all?
It's actually quite cheap.
Yeah.
And I like tried it once, but I was like, this is nothing to write home about. So I either bring something or I'll grab something from the convenience store or whatever.
Yeah.
But eating at your desk is something that I think is kind of unique
Mhm.
to the culture here.
Yeah. No, I think with what I've experienced, if I'm eating at my desk,
Mhm.
then it's like it's really busy.
Yeah.
No
Right?
time. And it's like,
Right?
I'm going to just smash some food now, 5 minutes, and just keep working. Or,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I think most people would think. But it's like, no, every day you get your hour lunch break and everybody's either, in City Hall, there's a dining hall on the top
Mm.
floor, which you can go there, but because everybody takes lunch at the same time,
It's always
it's massively crowded.
dining hall.
Yeah.
What I'm picturing, or probably not.
Big,
No.
long tables, smaller tables. There's like, you can pick whatever, there's like ramen, like whatever, like lunch they're serving that day or whatever. You buy a meal ticket and you go here and they give you your food and you kind of sit down and you eat.
Yeah.
It has a really nice view. And actually, even like regular citizens of Hiroshima City, you can actually go to that dining hall and get food.
Know what I'm doing next week?
Yeah.
I'm just
Try it
gonna walk
out.
in, just
Try it out.
sit down to a random person. How's your day going?
Hello. Yeah. So eating lunch at your desk.
That project almost done. Who are you?
So when you're working in a Japanese office, there are a few golden rules, I would say, that probably anybody who's worked in a Japanese office will know. One of them is called horenso.
Horenso.
So horenso is literally the word for spinach
Mm.
in Japanese, but you take the first, so ho, ren, and so all
Mhm.
stand for something.
Right.
Okay. So ho is hokoku, which means to report to people
Okay.
about what's going on and what's happening.
Yep.
And then the ren is renraku, which means you contact people,
Yep.
right? And then the so is sodan, which is consulting with people.
Okay.
These are like, this is one of the biggest important rules of Japanese offices, where if you are working in an office,
Yep.
generally the way it runs is that they will give you a job to do, or you go out and you find a job to do, and you have to tell everybody, not just the people directly involved, but your boss, their boss, everybody has to know about what's going on. So you have to make sure that you report to everybody
Right.
if there's a problem, how things are going. And then you have to make sure that you are contacting everybody. So is everybody CC'd on your email that you need them to be on there?
Okay. Yeah.
And then if you are not sure or you have an issue, promptly consult sodan, the so.
Okay.
So horenso is one of those like golden Japanese office rules
Yeah.
that probably every single new employee hears about horenso. Everybody knows about horenso. And like it's very useful because sometimes you work with companies that aren't really good at reporting or contacting you or consulting you, and things very quickly fall apart.
That can be a problem.
So one of the other golden rules is 10分前、15分前行動, which means taking action 15 minutes or 10 minutes before you have to do something.
Okay.
So essentially, if you have a meeting, get there 10 minutes early.
Yeah.
Or if you have to meet somebody at some place,
Mhm.
you get there early.
Mhm.
So it's essentially being early to everything and not being late.
Well, yeah, I try and be like that just in general.
Yeah.
10 minutes early doesn't hurt.
I mean, I get lost everywhere I go, so I am usually 30 minutes early everywhere I go,
Yeah.
just in case I get lost.
That's a nice buffer.
Yeah, it's a little excessive.
Yeah.
But so what happens though is if you are even 1 minute late.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, there was a coworker of mine who contacted our work line group and said, "Hey, I'm running a little bit late this morning. I'm just going to be like 2 or 3 minutes late."
Yeah.
And my boss was like, "Well, I'm really sorry to hear that, but you're going to have to ask for that time off. Like you can use like an hour of your paid vacation time because you can't just be like 1 or 2 minutes late."
Oh, wow.
And I think this is probably because he contacted us and told us that he was going to be late. I think if he was just like, "Oh, I'm so sorry I'm late," and came in late, it probably would have been a little bit better.
Right. Yeah.
So being late is often quite frowned upon. Japan's quite punctual, sort of like Germany in that effect, where everybody is very punctual wherever they go. And so if you are late, it's generally seen as this person is maybe not as trustworthy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're not like a good fit for like the office culture.
Yeah.
However, I had a very interesting conversation the other day with a friend of a friend.
Before you go into that, though, what do you think about that in that sense? It's like I've gone out of my way to actually inform you that I'm being late. It's not like I'm just going, "Hey, sorry I'm late. Let's just keep on going." Like,
well, I think it depends on how much pull you have in the office. How beloved are you?
Yeah.
You know?
Fair enough.
And like I've never been late, so I can't really say. Yeah. You know? And like while I don't agree that someone should have to take like an hour of paid vacation time just because they were a minute late, like I don't think that's fair at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that they're like
Rachel was late to tonight's recording.
I know, but my dentist office was running late.
She messaged she was going to be late.
It wasn't my fault.
This is coming out of your vacation.
I know, I'm out of my paid vacation. My POD.
No, fair enough.
So anyway, I was having a conversation with a friend of a friend.
Yeah.
And he is probably like in his 20s. He's studying at a university in Japan. Doesn't speak Japanese very well, but he's extremely bubbly and friendly.
Yeah.
I think he's from Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about how he'd been late to a lot of his classes. And I was like, how are they not like failing you or getting mad at you for this? He's like, "Oh, well, you see, I figured it out. If you make being characteristically and routinely late a part of your personality, Japanese people will forgive you." And I thought about it for a moment and I was like, wait, you and I know somebody who is routinely late to places that she goes. Ayaka. I love you, Ayaka. Sorry. But she's quite often late.
Yep.
And we all know this about her. And so it's okay. Because, that's
No, that's you're right. It's part of it.
It's the most genius thing I've ever heard. I was like, oh my God, you know more about Japanese cultures than I do.
It becomes part of the charm.
Yeah.
I think I was like, always late.
Yeah. If you make it a part of your personality. So if you are coming to Japan and people don't really know you yet, if you don't want to have to be early everywhere you go,
give them a few minutes.
Routinely late.
That works.
And people will forgive you.
Yep.
I was like, that's the smartest thing I've ever heard in my life.
I've never heard it put that way, and it just makes sense.
It makes so much sense, right?
Yeah.
So much sense. Yeah. Shout out to Hussein who told me that. Thank you so much.
I like that.
So smart.
That goes under the more you know.
Yeah. The more you know.
Ooh,
yeah.
nice.
So that's kind of like the two of the really golden rules of the office. Now, when I was working at Hiroshima University, that was my first experience in a Japanese office, and I was working in the international coordination division. So, I did a lot of translation, and we helped students who were studying abroad, things like that. But we had a lot of meetings that were completely meaningless. And by this, I mean, they'll have a little printout of what they're going to go over at the meeting, and then they just sort of read verbatim what's written on that printout.
What, we're going to read what we're going to go through, or why can't we just go through it?
It's like, why do we have to have this meeting if you're just going to read from this paper? Like, couldn't we all read it on our own time?
Oh, so it's like, just Could have just been a bulletin
Yeah.
and just put it out there.
Yeah. And these meetings, they would just go on, and they make you so tired.
So how would you compare that back to like what in the States? I know you've been here for a long time. Did you have any office jobs in the States? So you wouldn't know because
never.
we have a lot of meaningless meetings.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm getting the sense that there's a lot more of it here.
Well, they're definitely, depending on your office, because my office now doesn't really have a lot of meetings.
Yeah.
But the office when I worked at ʀᴏᴅᴛ University, I think we had a meeting like every week.
Mm-hmm.
And they go around, they talk about, like we're doing this now and this now. Does anybody have anything they need to, share with the group?
Yeah.
And you would have to go around the room.
Mm-hmm.
So like, all right, we'll start with you. And they just go around. And I never had anything to say because I'm like, I'm just doing translation as usual.
My meetings are great. I'd set up the table, a few chairs around it, speak to myself, change character, and then sit in the other chair. I'm still the same name though. It's just like, Ante, what do you think?
Well, Ante, I say. So there were a lot of meaningless meetings. And so generally the offices have a hierarchy. Okay. So they're very organized, the Japanese offices. They have organization charts of like, okay, so this department, this division, which is like a subsection of the department, and so on and so forth, right?
Yeah.
And so generally the ranking goes for who has the most power in this office. So the department head, the bucho, they're the top. So at ʀᴏᴅᴛ University, like the top was obviously like the head of the university, right? But when it comes to like to the departments, the department head, the bucho, that's the top person. They have to make all the really big decisions. Everything has to go through them, kind of thing. Under the bucho, you have the kacho, which is the division head and then the department head.
Okay. Yep.
Right. So the kacho, and then it can go either way from this kacho. It can either go kacho hosa, which is the assistant to the kacho.
It's already sounding like too much.
Yeah, I know. So then everybody lower than kacho is either like the assistant to the kacho, or then there's like kakaricho, which is like a subsection leader.
Yep.
And then you just have like the regular people, right? So, for example, in my office, I am part of my current office right now.
Yep.
I'm part of the translation team, which is an unofficial kind of group of 4 of us.
Yep.
And then there's our team leader. Okay. And so I work for the internationalization division, which has an assistant to the division head, a division head, and then also the department head is also in our office.
Do you call it the internationalization?
It is the internationalization division. Yeah.
Wow.
It's internationalization promotion division, but we just took out promotion because, it's very long. But in Japanese, it's just kokusaika.
Clap it with me, people.
It's just kokusaika, which is very short in Japanese.
Yeah.
So that's the hierarchy.
Right.
So whenever I have to submit a translation, so I do my translation, right? I give it to all of the members of the translation team, check it and read it. I get feedback from all of them. And once it's been okayed by the translation team head, then it goes to the division, the assistant to the division head, the division head, and then they have to like okay it as well.
Sounds like a bit of a process, man.
Yeah. And so everybody has to sort of look at this thing that I've done and say, okay. And this process of everybody okaying it is called kissai.
So everyone would say, well, I'm guessing, has quite a high level of English, right?
So here's the thing.
It gets good.
Everybody on the translation team does.
Yeah.
So the translation team is me, another native speaker who's from Singapore, and then there's 2 Japanese women who are bilingual.
Yeah.
Right? But for the assistant to the division head and the division head, so the kacho and the kacho hosa, they get shifted about every 3 years, 2 years, depending.
Okay, yeah.
So sometimes you get really lucky and they do speak English. So our previous division head, she spoke English.
Yeah.
So she would actually like read through and sometimes give feedback.
Yeah.
But our current division head speaks a little bit of English, and our assistant to the division head doesn't really speak any. So they are okaying it based on the fact that the head of our team okayed it.
Okay, yeah.
So it's a really interesting thing where it's like they've okayed it, but they probably haven't read it.
It's like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. They know what they're doing. I got faith in the team. You guys are
Yeah,
good. You're right.
exactly. So it's a really like sometimes if you're like in a rush, you're like, I really need to get this out and done. You have to like expedite the process and be like, I need you to like put your hanko or your name seal on this today. And we'll get into hanko. Yeah. We'll get into hanko. So the thing about hanko, they are these little I wish I brought mine. I didn't bring mine today. They're these little round stamps that have your name. You can see it on the thumbnail that I've posted for today's episode. The little red circle.
I'll probably try and put a picture up as we're talking.
Yeah. So they are essentially your signature. So instead of signing something that, yes, okay, I've seen this, I've checked it, you pop your hanko on there. And they've been around forever.
I know it's like, some people either love it or hate it too.
But here's the thing. The Japanese government decided we really need to phase out this hanko stuff because if you have a hanko, it means you have to put it on a piece of paper. Yeah. Which means you're wasting paper. So they're like, you know what? We're going to get rid of the hanko system. No more.
Right.
Which is great in theory.
Yeah.
The only problem with that is, so when you go over to, so when I'm working in my current system and I have to get something kisside or approved by everybody. Before, I would have a little piece of paper that would have like, so like ᴏᴜ, ᴏᴏ, all of the names, and then like my name, my coworkers' names, and below it, you would just pop your hanko on there because it'd be like, I've seen it, I've okayed it, it's good. It's pretty easy, you know? Yeah. You literally just walk over to them, say, can you please put your hanko on this? And they say, okay, and then you're done.
There's also different types, right?
There's lots of different types.
Yeah. So like you've got your like really official personal one.
There's really official ones for like banking.
Right.
The banking one is the big one. They have certain specifications. And if you don't have the exact specifications, they won't let you use it.
Yep.
You can also register it with the city. And then there are also ones that are smaller and more informal for just like, oh, hey, like I saw this. Yeah. You know? But for work, you can just use the informal one. It's fine.
Yep.
So I use my informal hanko all the time. And one of the things about my name, particularly in Japanese, is Reicheru, which has 6 characters.
Okay.
Now, generally, the limit of characters that you can have for a hanko, a smaller one, is 5. So I'm a bit over the limit. So I had to find a company that would specifically make a hanko with my name on it.
Yeah, I think I actually had to get, because mine is my family name.
Yeah.
So I got the 6.
Yeah.
It's quite a long one.
It's
so
long, right? I mean, I just have my first name. I didn't even put the last name in there because my last name would be ᴏᴜᴅᴜᴜ, which is 5. So it'd be 11 characters, which wouldn't work, right?
Yep.
So I had to find somebody to specifically make a hanko for me.
Fashion.
Yeah. It's really nice though. So anyway, when the Japanese government decided we're not going to do hankos anymore, my whole office had to switch to this digital system. I don't know who designed this digital system, but it is a nightmare of you have to click this, and then you have to click that, and then you have to click this, and then you have to put in all this info, and then you have to click that and click that. It's like, we can't just make this easier. There's so many steps. So it takes more time.
Let's just stick to the hanko.
Yeah, it takes more time to do this digital system than it would take to just put a thing on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So it's quite annoying.
I'm having a meeting next week with Ante at my work.
Do they all have different hanko?
We have a suggestion box. We might be phasing out the hanko for the, and I'm quite liking the idea.
I like the suggestion
handle
box.
And the red wax seal.
Oh, I love those.
Just like the days of old.
I love those. I have a friend who made some of those herself. They're so cool. Those sealing wax things, they look so cool. Anyway.
Do it with a stamp or even with the ring.
That would be so... Anyway.
Send that out. I have decreed. No. Anyway.
It's the nice part about having your own office. You can do that.
I know. Can't wait for this meeting, by the way.
So that's kind of how the hierarchy runs in the offices, right? So if you have, for example, if I want to take a day off, I ask the head of my translation team, because she's basically who I report to. Yeah. And if she says, okay, then I have to apply for that day off, which has to be approved by the division head or sorry, yeah, the division head and
Yep.
then the assistant to the division head. Everybody has to okay it.
Mm.
So another thing that you
So
will sort
does
of
it take a while though to get back, or they're pretty quick with that?
well, see, here's the really nice thing about being a public servant.
Mm.
If you ask for a time off, they legally can't say no.
Yeah.
So if I say, "Hey, can I take tomorrow off?" and if they say okay, then like all I have to do is just put it in the system, and I don't have to do anything else.
Mhm.
I don't have to like wait for it to come back, which is nice.
What about with like in general Japanese office workers? Like I think like in Australia,
Mm-hmm.
holiday time, it's roughly, I think it's like 20 days a year.
Mm-hmm.
What's it like in Japan? Do you know?
So this depends on where you work.
Mhm.
Really depends on where you work. For example, so for me being a public servant,
Mhm.
I get, I believe it is 20 days.
Okay, yeah,
And then if you don't use all those days, they carry over to the next year.
yeah, okay,
Okay.
sounds right.
And I would say it is easier
Mhm.
to take time off when you're a public servant because they literally can't say no.
Yeah.
Also you like have to use a certain amount of like legally you have to use like a certain amount of days.
Mhm.
And if you don't use those days, you'll lose them.
Right.
So they're really trying to like encourage people to take time off.
Okay,
Um,
yep.
because it's really easy to like if you're busy or overworked
Mhm.
and you're like I literally can't take a day off and then you don't.
Yeah. No, I think
It's
also
obviously
with
not
our
good.
offices in Australia, depending on which company I guess you're working for.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked for quite a big company, or one of the big four banks, but
Mm-hmm.
it also becomes like a HR problem too if you're not taking
Yeah,
days off. And it's like,
right.
no, you gotta go.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like the bosses will be like, "Look, guys, our division is like working too much overtime or not taking enough days off. So, like, I know we're all busy, but like, be sure to take time for you."
Mhm.
Which is something
Mhm.
I'd never really experienced in any of the other offices I worked in.
Okay. Because I was gonna ask you tell me about Japanese overtime.
So,
Because with what I hear, and I'm hearing stereotypes of people just like sitting at work and we can't go home till the boss decides he's going home,
so that is definitely the stereotype,
right?
I would say, for
Yeah.
Japanese offices. Now, it's actually on my list of stereotypes was working
Oh, okay.
overtime. So, when you work overtime, this depends. It greatly depends on what kind of company you're working for, what their
Mhm.
policies are. Some places have paid overtime, some places don't have paid overtime.
Yep.
So when I was working at Hiroshima University, I never had to work overtime.
That's great.
Well, because my job is a little bit different from the average like worker's job because I don't get transferred anywhere.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I was just there to translate stuff. So I never had to work
Okay.
overtime.
Yep.
And then when I started working at City Hall,
Mhm.
there was only or maybe like very few occasions where I'd have to work overtime. And when I first got there 4 years ago, if I worked overtime, so for example, let's say I work an hour
Yeah.
overtime, I could take that hour off somewhere else during the week. Like
Okay.
it wasn't
Yeah.
paid overtime at that point.
Mhm.
It was just like, well, you've worked, I don't know, like 4 hours of overtime, so I'm gonna take off early today,
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
thing, which I really liked,
Mhm.
to be
Mhm.
honest.
Yeah. Well, I kind of had the same too at one stage because depending on the time of the year,
Hmm.
they would start rolling out like, guys, we need overtime. We'll give you the time back when you want it. And then
Hmm.
if people were like, yeah, well, we're not interested, then it became pushed into like, guys, we're still going to pay.
Yeah.
And sometimes it was good. And depending for me, because I was traveling to Japan a lot, but
Hmm.
all my holidays were just coming back to Japan. And to the point where it's like, I need holiday time. So it's just like, paid leave. Do you mind just giving me holiday time? I was like, yeah, cool. So,
Nice.
so we kind of have a choice and depends, but yeah,
Hmm.
some people are like, not interested. We're paying.
Like,
Okay.
all right,
Yeah.
yeah. So, about 2 years into my working at City Hall, they switched to paid time off.
Mhm.
Um, and in order to work overtime, first of all, you have to apply for permission to work overtime.
Yeah.
Which is something that I don't know I don't know if that's standard across Japan, but at City Hall, you have this thing that's called like jikangai meide, which is
Mhm.
like I've been ordered to work overtime.
Yeah.
So if they need me to work an event on the weekend,
Mhm.
then I would know in advance, right?
Yeah.
So I would apply for that time off and say, all right, I'm going to be working from, let's say, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m.
Yeah.
with an hour break.
Mhm.
And you put that in. And so all of your bosses say, okay, good, you are okay to work overtime.
Mhm.
And then after you go and work the overtime, you have to 호렌소の 報告, report how much
Yep.
overtime you actually worked.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, let's say I only worked from 9 to 2
Yeah.
and I didn't take a lunch break.
Mm-hmm.
You put that in the system and you send it off to your bosses to approve,
Yeah.
and then they can get you the overtime that you need.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very much, they don't make it easy to work overtime, which I appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
However, well, that's how it is in my office right now.
Yeah.
I do know, however, that my colleagues and my coworkers, because they have so much to do and we're just understaffed in general,
Yeah.
that they do work overtime quite often.
Mhm.
Now, because they're paid for overtime, it's a nice little way to supplement their income.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a friend who's a teacher, an elementary school teacher in Japan, and he's Japanese.
Mhm.
And he doesn't really get paid a whole lot of money. And he's like, if I don't work overtime, then like my
Oh, so
salary is not enough to
enough.
support me and my family.
Oh, you'd think you'd be on a decent pay.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
So there are cases in Japan where people are, they're not working overtime because they want to, but they're working overtime
It's
because
necessity,
they
right?
need
They need.
to
Yep.
like help with their pay.
Right. Right.
So
It's also kind of similar to like kind of what we do, because we do a
mhm.
lot of little side gigs and things.
Yeah, that's
But
how
I guess it's some people really need to do the
yeah.
yeah.
And that's essentially why I have so many side gigs. I need to supplement my income.
Mm.
So for me, side gigs is my overtime.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
And so you hear a lot of like very sensational news about people who've worked. There's a word in Japanese called karoshi, which is
Mhm.
to work yourself to death.
That's the word I was.
Yep.
Yep.
It's a
Knew
word
there
that
was a word for it.
probably only exists in Japanese because like who wants to work that much? And it's not like they want to,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah.
But there are, people who are in these positions in these companies where they feel that they have to work overtime and, they're new at the company, so they have to pull their weight or
Yeah.
or for whatever reason that this happens, but they get into this sort of loop where they can't get out of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a story of a doctor, like a new doctor who was
Mhm.
working just insane hours, and he ended up taking his own life because he was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And so it's a testament to sort of how I think a lot of younger workers feel pressured and they feel like they can't reach out and talk to their colleagues and be like, look, I feel very overworked.
Mhm.
Because in Japan, there's the idea that like working hard is a virtue.
Yeah.
Working hard is a good thing.
Mhm.
The word gambaru, to like do your best, to
Yeah.
work hard, is something that's very ingrained in everybody
Mhm.
here. And while I applaud working hard,
Yeah.
I think work-life balance is also extremely important.
Definitely.
And
This is like
so,
even talking like my father-in-law.
mhm.
What's your hobby? Work.
Yeah,
What?
it's not a hobby.
That's like, yeah. We need to sit down and talk, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that when it comes to like, people being younger workers being sort of pushed into working really hard or feeling like
Yeah.
they can't leave before their superiors leave because like it would be like rude
Mhm.
or they just got here, like how dare they, because the whole culture of your superiors, your senpai,
Yep.
and then your kohai, those who are below
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
is still quite ingrained in office culture
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So if somebody is taking you under their wing to teach you how to do something, you can't just leave before they
Yeah.
do.
I can even kind of see it like not even like that extends out from work culture as well,
Mm-hmm.
even like amongst friends,
Mm-hmm.
because well, with the people that we know,
Yeah.
there's quite a big age differences
Oh
in
yes.
people,
Oh yes. Oh yes.
and there's still that kind of senpai kohai
Mm-hmm.
respect kind of thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. It really is ingrained in the culture.
And it really depends on how old the person is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, my headphones keep sliding. Anyway,
All good.
so if they are of the let's say they're in their 40s,
Mhm.
currently in their 40s, 50s, their school system and their schooling was massively different from how it is now.
Right.
And that school environment and the clubs, that's where a lot of the senpai kohai
Mhm.
like mentality comes in.
Right. Right.
And teachers were allowed to hit their students and it was fine.
Mhm.
Like that was the thing that was like allowed.
Yeah.
And that was just like, they would make kids go out in the snow and run around
I think
and
it was allowed
and
in
if
my
you
day too.
and if
Actually.
you couldn't hack it, then obviously you needed to just be stronger.
Yeah.
So it was this very like no nonsense attitude, very militaristic almost, no nonsense attitude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that generation now, the 40s and the 50s, those people are in like senior management positions.
Yeah.
So that culture of senpai kohai must be respected no matter what is still
mhm.
very much alive and well.
Yeah.
And it makes me really glad to see that like the younger generation is not so ingratiated
Right,
into
right.
that.
Yep.
But
Yeah, it all changes.
yeah.
Well, like I was saying now, that yeah, I think when I went to school, I think maybe I was on the cusp when that was going out, when like teachers could actually hit you. Like, and actually, Dennis is probably watching my brother. I remember hearing stories from him because we've got a few years in between us. And if I just say the name Sister Pauline,
That is
yeah, I
even
think
that sounds scary to me,
right,
Sister
yeah,
Pauline.
yeah. We had like priests and nuns that were teachers, and
Yikes!
yeah,
Rapping your knuckles, you know. That's my stereotypical like idea.
pretty
of
much.
of
Yeah, not so much these days. Yeah.
So another thing that's kind of going by the wayside in Japanese culture, but still exists in
Mhm.
offices, is tea.
Tea,
Tea.
Mhm.
So,
as in tea breaks, or
as in when you get into the office in the morning,
Mhm.
back in like the 80s, generally, the women would be responsible for making tea for everybody.
oh, the OLs.
Yes, the OLs.
Okay.
The OLs would have to make tea for everybody.
Mm.
And if they had, say, a client come in to their office,
Yeah. Yep.
the OLs had to make the tea and serve the tea. Just
Mhm.
the women,
Mhm.
not the men.
Mhm.
And so in some offices, you still...
the way it should be.
Yes.
Sorry, go on.
So in some offices, they still have this culture where if you're making tea
Mhm.
for everybody in the morning, or if you're just making tea or whatever, then the women generally are the ones who are passing out the tea to everybody.
Right.
In my office, everybody just kind of makes their own tea or coffee. At lunchtime, one of the women in my office makes a pot of tea
Yeah.
for anybody who wants it.
Mhm.
But
Is
it's
that
not
'cause
like...
she needs to, or is it just she likes to do that? Or
I don't think she's like expected. Like, she doesn't like have to.
Yeah.
But I think there are other companies where they might still be like, oh, we're gonna have a guest coming. You woman over there, you make us tea. But I think it is fading out slowly.
Yeah.
Speaking of tea,
Yes.
in your offices in Australia, did you have like a communal coffee pot selection of tea, like anything like that?
Oh yeah, like in the kitchen
Mm-hmm.
room, the break room, like yeah, there was coffee and all that there. So yeah.
So who paid for the coffee?
Oh no, well yeah, you could either bring your own,
Mm-hmm.
or there was just the usual like jar. There's the coffee,
Mm-hmm.
there's the tea. Depends if you're really, particular about your stuff, then you'll
Okay.
bring it in your own. But yeah, it's an office expense.
So the tea and coffee in my office, we have a lot of different like teas, and we have like a few drip coffee packs.
Yep.
And they are paid for by something called kahi. And kahi is money that is taken out of your paycheck
Yep.
every month. It's about 2,000 yen, so in Australian dollars, around about $20.
Yep.
And they pool that money together, and they buy the coffee,
Mhm.
the tea. They also use that money for end of the year parties,
Mhm.
welcome parties.
Mhm.
So it's really nice because then you don't have to pay like 5,000 yen,
Yeah. Yeah.
like $50 for like a
Right.
dinner, because it's
Mhm.
all from kahi.
Yeah.
So all of the tea, the coffee, all of that sort of thing, it's always with the money that we've pooled.
Yeah.
So did you have like a similar pool of money, or?
Not when it came to that. So the only type of money pooling that would happen would probably be more for team events, like if it's so and so's birthday,
Oh, we're gonna get a cake,
or
or...
so and so's going away, like they're having a baby,
Mhm.
or they're getting married,
Mhm.
or yeah, that thing. Then people would kind of chip in and that. When it came to end of year parties, no, that was that was a company expense, and for who I worked for, those end of year parties were pretty big.
I was gonna say, you work for a really big bank, so...
Yeah, so like, because I remember the first one I went to, that was at the Opera House.
Oh,
And
wow.
then I know they've had ones at like it's like where the Olympics were held, one of the arenas
Oh,
there,
wow.
and well, so many people
Yeah, I was
as
gonna
well.
say.
So yeah, it's a big expense. So
Yeah.
so
So the
and that was
company
on the news probably a
company
few
like
times.
puts the bill, essentially.
Exactly. But yeah, times when it's been like, should the bank really be spending money on these parties after this
Yeah.
financial year? Like record profits. Where is this coming from?
So
Mm.
essentially, when it comes to all of my office parties that I'd ever been to, and there are quite a few.
Yeah.
Generally we have a welcome/farewell party to people in the new fiscal year.
Oh, cool.
Because that's when, so in March, in the
Yep.
new fiscal year, that's when we get new people coming in
Mhm.
and people going out.
Yep.
So have a combined little like party. We'll go to like a restaurant, have drinks, have food.
Yeah.
Good times, right? Lots of speeches. Oh boy, lots of speeches.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So there's the welcome and farewell parties. There's also the end of the year party, the ʀᴏᴏᴇ.
Yep.
Which is like a little party to say like, hey, you know, we all worked really hard this year. Let's go out and have a drink. And
Yeah, just the end.
attendance
Yep.
is not mandatory.
Yep.
They always say if you can come, that's great. If not, like they take a tally, you know.
Yeah.
So which is always appreciated.
Yeah.
Because there are a lot of people in my office who like have kids and they just can't go or whatever, and it's fine. And it's always paid for by that pooled money. But when it comes to birthdays,
Yeah.
doing like a birthday celebration in an office in Japan is not a thing I've ever experienced.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which kind of makes me sad because like I kind of want like a big old cake and we can all have cake.
Yeah,
'cause
so
that
we
would be
always
nice.
there was always a cake. So it would be pulled for like, say, in a team, maybe, hey, Ante and Rachel's birthday's in the same month.
Mhm.
So it's grouped together. We're not going to have
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise it gets
See, that's
out
what
of
I wish we
hand.
had, a nice
But
little like
yeah.
birthday
Even just
month.
it's nice.
Yeah, because we have a lot of November birthdays in my office. And we're like, we
Okay.
should do like a birthday
Yeah.
thing because that'd be fun.
Going back to the ʀᴏᴏᴇ thing, though,
Mhm.
so that brings me to
The end of the year
drinking
parties.
culture in general, though.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm hearing, well, I've also seen it myself.
What have you
with,
seen?
like,
Have you
the
seen?
bars.
I've seen
No, just
things.
salarymen in general, like,
Mhm.
going out and drinking, and it's kind of like that, have to go as a
Mhm.
group because it's not good if I don't go.
Yeah,
So you're saying if you're on, it's okay. The end of year party, understood. if
in
you're not
my
gonna go.
office anyway.
But-
Very chill.
Like I said, I hear at the other offices sometimes it's just like, people out, and it's like, I don't want to drink, but I have to go and drink.
Yeah, yeah. So let's
Yeah.
talk about the drinking culture. I have an interesting story where I was at a welcome party for a big event for the
Yeah.
city with people from all over the world.
Mhm.
And there was this amazing, amazing woman from Finland.
Yeah.
She was so sweet.
Mhm.
I loved talking to her. And she was kind of looking around and everything going on. And she noticed all the alcohol, the beer,
Yep.
the whiskey, all that. And she just looked at me incredulously and she goes, why is there so much alcohol? Why is nobody drinking coffee? And I was like, well, drinking alcohol is a really big part of parties in Japan. And she's like, in Finland, we would never allow alcohol at a business party.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And she was like so like just incredulous that she was like, and there's no coffee? I was like, no, they might be serving coffee later. And she's like, can't believe there's no coffee. And she was just so like
It's a
taken.
party.
She was so taken aback that there was so much alcohol there.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to drinking culture in the office
Mhm.
and drinking culture in Japan in general, which is
Mhm.
something we definitely have to talk about later.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a whole different topic on
Yeah.
itself.
So there's this concept called communication, which is the word
I love it.
communication
Yep.
and drinking put together. So a lot of, another stereotype of Japanese people is that they're all shy. And not all of them, obviously, but, quite a large number of them can be rather
Yeah.
shy.
Yep.
And rather
I think
introverted.
we know quite a few
Yeah.
interesting ones.
Right? And so you have a little bit to drink,
Yep.
liquid courage,
Yep.
and suddenly you feel like you can talk to people and you can sort of maybe say what's been on your mind that you haven't really been able to say
Mhm.
because there's always the concept of
My Japanese gets so good after a few drinks.
I think that happens
Not even just Japanese.
everybody's languages.
Right.
Yeah, if you speak a second language or you're studying a second language, it gets way better after a few
Yeah,
drinks.
because you just throw all your self-consciousness out the
Yeah,
door.
exactly.
However, though, strangely enough, I can speak so many other languages I never knew I could. That's called drinking too much.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
go on.
So there's the concept of tatemae and honne. Have you heard of these before?
I've heard of them.
Okay, so tatemae is the sort of the person you present to everybody, the good person,
Mhm.
essentially. You might not like the person you're working with, but you are, hello, so
Oh,
good to
yeah.
see you. Did you get a haircut? It looks so
Oh,
good.
thank you.
And then honne is what you really think.
Mm-hmm.
So in the same conversations of the hi, how are you? Your haircut looks so good. You're like, I can't deal with you today. Your haircut looks stupid.
Fucking
Like,
bitch.
yeah,
What?
exactly. So the thing about most the polite on the surface,
Right.
tatemae,
Mm-hmm.
is kind of everybody's like default mode, right?
Yeah.
So once you have a little bit to drink, you can kind of open up a little bit more and show more of that honne, more of what you're actually feeling.
Right. That's what I think of you.
Yeah. If you drink
As for
too much,
you.
if you drink too much, you go way on that spectrum.
Yeah.
But the thing is, even if you did go that far, everybody is so drunk that nobody's going to remember.
And maybe even, well, do you remember him? Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
he let it rip. Yeah.
So when you have, let's say, a welcome party, you know, you go, the first thing, I'm sure you've already experienced this at other like end of the year parties you've been to. The first thing, what is the first thing that you get asked when you sit down is, okay, who's drinking beer?
That's always
Take the
thing.
tally,
Yeah.
you know, because it's always like, okay, so we're going to do our kanpai, our cheers with beer, and then everybody orders what they want. And now I don't really like beer. So I'm always the person being like, I'm sorry, can I have something different? Because I don't like beer. I'm really sorry.
Word is on the street, it doesn't like you either.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It's mutual,
Right.
right?
Fair enough.
So the first act of any office or company party or even party between friends is always cheers with something alcoholic.
Yeah.
Right? It starts with alcohol and it ends with alcohol.
Yeah.
And I'm always on the fence about it because there's some people who really can't handle alcohol.
Right.
And they are like pressured to drink and they feel like they have to say yes, and then they get like, really sick and they feel really horrible. Because a lot of companies, if you're not, I'm a public servant, so we're pretty chill, honestly, because we're very involved with the government. So if we screw up, like, it's huge.
Right.
But for regular companies, if you know that your boss and other senior management who you want to get in good with are going to be at this party, you're very pressured to go. And if they tell you to drink, they say, why aren't you drinking? Or they say, here, I'm going to pour you a beer. Here, drink it. Even if you don't like beer, even if you don't like alcohol, you kind of have to drink.
Yeah.
Because they're like the higher ups, your boss, the people you really need to get in good with and establish a relationship with.
Yeah.
And mostly establishing a relationship generally happens over drinking, which I don't really agree with that as a standard, but like that's the way it is.
I'll tell you even personally. So me, through work though, just going out, I've gotten a few jobs just from meeting people while I've been out. What do you do? And had a few drinks together, pass a business card, a little chat, and like, I'll contact you. And yeah, it's happened. Like I've gotten work that way as well.
Yeah.
I remember even when I first moved here too, I was surprised. My mother-in-law telling me, you should go out.
Ah, as a way to make
It's
contacts.
important to like just go out and be seen, even just for work things as well. And I was just like, oh wow. That's like,
I can actually attest to the same because if you go out and you have a bar that they know you and they know what you do, if they have a customer that they know needs a service you provide, they will introduce you.
Yeah.
They'll say, oh yeah, you were talking about how you needed I don't know, an engraved mug, like this lovely mug.
Hey.
You need an engraved mug. Oh, I know somebody that does that. Hey, Ante, come over here. Here, meet this guy. Like, hey, cheers. Like,
that's even extended from even when I don't know the people, just because I'm a regular there. Yeah. Oh, I know someone. I'll put you in touch with them.
Right.
Yeah. So
even if you're not working in an office, going out to the bars and drinking, or even you don't even have to drink alcohol, but going out to the bars is in Hiroshima especially.
Yeah.
Especially is very important for networking. But back to office culture.
Right.
So there are companies that they do pressure people to drink. People can get acute alcohol poisoning.
Damn, yeah.
Yeah, like I've heard stories of people they're like, well, I had to go drink and I drank a whole lot and I don't know how I got home, but I was asleep in my entryway when I got there.
I've heard some stories. Yeah.
And this is, the people who tell these stories are generally, 40, 50 years old. They're a bit older. So I'm assuming that it's a bit more chill now than it was, but it really does depend on your company.
Yeah.
Because there's the concept of, have you heard the term black kigyo?
Don't know that one.
So black companies.
Yeah.
Which means these are companies that will force you to work insane amounts of overtime. They won't let you take any days off.
Yeah.
They will sort of, do things that you shouldn't really be doing to people who work with you. So there's like companies that are just like awful and deadly and horrible.
Yeah. Which
And
sounds great if you're an awful person. But
so like I remember I was working at a bakery for very brief,
Mhm.
maybe like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
And they were the blackest of black kikyo.
not because they were burning the bread.
Not because they were burning the bread, because they were treating people terribly.
Mm.
And there was this girl, she's probably in her 20s, and I came in and she worked in a different building than I did. I was kind of off baking cookies and all that, and
Yeah,
she was
yeah.
off at the bread bit. Adorable girl. And so I, kind of got to know her a little bit because she would come in and grab things every now and again.
Yeah.
And I remember one day she comes in and she kind of just looks at me and she goes, "Help me." Which is really
What?
terrifying to see somebody. And I was just like, what's going on? And so she was apparently coming in at like 4 a.m. every morning.
Yeah.
And she wasn't leaving until like 9 or 10 at night. Just working like straight through the day.
Oh my God.
And she had a car. She would come
Yeah.
by car, right? And it's like this red car.
Yeah.
And one day I noticed that her car had just been like sitting in the parking lot for like days and days.
Hmm.
But she hadn't been coming into work.
Okay.
So I was like, "Hey, has anybody like seen so and so?" And it's like, "Yeah, apparently like very nonchalantly I was told this. Yeah, apparently they can't get in touch with her and they don't know what's happening."
Okay.
So I immediately think the worst has
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
And so apparently that girl's mother
Mhm.
called the bakery and said, "Oh, my daughter is never coming back to work for you ever again."
Yeah.
Because of everything you put her through, and I will not let her work for you.
Mhm.
And she came and got the car eventually, but like
Yeah.
the fact that that was at a bakery that is very well known, popular, beloved. I'm
Mhm.
not going to say the name,
I
but
will
like it's
leave
a
it there.
bakery
Yeah.
that everybody has heard of, and they
Ah,
treat
man.
people
I'm glad she got out.
horribly. I mean,
No,
I
I'm
was
glad.
working
Like,
insane hours as well. That's why I quit.
oh man, she just took it. She was taking it for too
Yeah.
long, man. That was.
Yeah. So I'm really glad that she got out. But, that's especially if you're working for a smaller, privately owned
Yeah. Yeah.
company, you really run the risk of running into companies
No,
that
it's
will,
true. You hear the horror stories everywhere, man. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
and they don't, the people who are on top, they don't look at their employees like people. They're just
Right.
tools.
Yeah.
Right. So that's sort of some of the more
I'm pretty
negative.
bad like that with myself. It's only me.
There you go. Yeah, you're the blackest
Go
of
on
Black
HR.
Kikyo.
Yeah.
Your whole HR department is just you.
Yeah.
And you're like, "Okay, Ante, why have you come in today?" "Well, you see,
Uh,
Ante."
just before we move on, though, if you do want to
Mhm.
hear a little story of mine,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
we
yeah.
kind of went a little bit down and dark, and before we come back out there, so
Mhm.
when I was working at a freight company,
Mhm.
and again it was a call center job, and I was a team leader there,
Mhm.
and it was a small team, it was a really good team,
Mhm.
and this really just comes down to how you should just physically look after yourself.
Mhm.
And one of my good friends, the worker there, he was quite large,
Mhm.
only a few years older than me,
Mhm.
and winter time, not feeling too well. I'm
Mhm.
gonna go home sick. Yeah, go for it.
Mhm.
And it was over the weekend. Next day on the Monday, he's not here.
Mhm.
No call.
Oh,
Next day, no call. And like
that's
we're trying to communicate with the guy
yeah.
calling and that. And then on Wednesday we had a call from, it's like, who is this? And it's so and so's auntie. Yeah, he was found dead from, he caught the flu.
Mhm.
And because he was so large, well, his heart just couldn't handle it.
Oh no.
And so he lived with another roommate.
Mhm.
That last few days, there was nobody there. The roommate
Mm.
wasn't there. So he was kind of like, who really knows when he passed away? He was just there.
No.
Yeah, and that was just like a real, like, just sent him home the other
Yeah.
week, and
Yeah.
that was it. I was like, wow. So people just look after your health in
Yeah.
general too. So
Yeah.
because eat right. If you're working stupid hours too, like that affects you
It
as
really
well.
does.
So
It messes with you a lot.
you gotta that's that whole thing of work-life balance
Yeah.
too. So
And it's not easy because you do feel weirdly like pressured to like, oh, like for example, this week I took off a half day and I also took off a full day
yeah,
in the
yeah.
same week, which I don't usually do.
Mhm.
But I'm not really that busy at work right now, and
Yep.
I had other things I need to take care of. But I remember when I took my vacation to Australia, which
I've been there.
I took, yeah.
Yeah.
So I went and I took 4 days off,
Mhm.
and I strung them up so that it was about, I think I had like 6 days off or something.
How dare you?
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I felt like, I felt kind of bad about it
Yeah.
because I'm like, this is kind of a lot of days off to be taking at a time where nobody would, like in that, it was October when I went.
Right.
Generally, people take off in the summer for like the summer holidays, and I just come off of a week of summer holiday in September because I had to use up 5 days, like, or else I would lose them.
What's the longest you've taken off?
Probably the trip I went to Australia.
Yeah.
Or no, that's not true. Sometimes I can take 4 days off in a row, and if they're in the middle of like a big holiday, I can take like 9 or 10 days because it'll be like national holiday weekend, and you can kind of tack them along.
Okay.
So the most vacation days I've used at once has probably been 4.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll beat you there. I don't know how I scored that one, but this was years ago too. But I think it was almost 2 months at one stage. That was
Damn.
really, I don't know how I was able to
Yeah.
accumulate that much.
Yeah.
And then it was like, well, I'm going overseas to Croatia.
See ya.
Yeah.
Back in 2 months.
It was like that. And it was that whole thing was like lying on the beach every 2 weeks. Oh, it's payday. It was great.
That's nice.
Now, other than that, then it was like always when I was coming to Japan, it'd usually be like 2 weeks.
See,
Yeah.
there's the thing. So I took off my like 4 days,
Mhm.
put it together for 6 days to go to Australia, right? And like I said, I felt kind of bad about it, but I had such a great time. And everyone that I met there, I'd be like, "Oh, I'm traveling with my friend here. We're from, we live in Japan." And they'd always be like, "Oh, wow, how long are you staying?" And I'd be like, 4 days. And they'd be like,
What?
"What? Like, why are you not staying for
Yeah,
longer?"
exactly. Yeah.
And I get it. I really do. But like in Japan, like taking 2 weeks off to go like on a vacation is just like so unheard of.
Yeah.
And I even felt bad about, like I had my week off of mandatory days to take off. And then the next month I had another week off essentially. And I got back and everybody's like, "Oh, welcome back. How was it?" Da, da, da. And I was messaging with a woman who sometimes gives me translation work in my office.
Yeah.
She works in a different office. And I said, like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I was in Australia for a week, which is why I didn't get back to you sooner." And she's like, "Oh, that's so great." Da, da, da. And I was like, I feel kind of bad because I took, quite a bit of time off. And she's like, "Rachel, everybody loves you. They don't care if you take off."
Relax,
Yeah.
man. Yeah.
So
24 days. Come on. Be hard on yourself.
yeah. So like even me who was used to, when I lived in the States, my parents would always have like, you could take 2 weeks off. You could take, a summer
So it was a
vacation.
normal thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so because I've just been in this sort of in Japan for so long, and then I also, my longest job here, which was the restaurant that I owned, you can't take time off.
Yeah.
Because then you don't make money. So taking a long vacation, it was just been very difficult for
When
me.
I went back to Australia earlier in the year, like people were even like family. Like, how long are you staying for? And it's like, and even that was 10 days, right?
There you go. Yeah.
Like, that's not long enough. I'm like, that's all I can really do. So
Yeah.
no, it's strange. Yeah. Then when you're here, it starts to change the way you think
Yeah.
about holidays and that. And then again, in my sense as well, like I don't really have holidays because I
Yeah.
work for myself.
I was gonna
so
say.
it's like,
Because your boss is a jerk.
I know. Should see him, man. Talking that meeting next week. But before we wrap things up, is there anything else of Japanese office culture we need to look at?
Well, do you know about Cool Biz?
What is cool biz? Obviously, I don't.
Cool Biz. So I have notes on this. I looked this up.
Make me learned.
Cool Biz was implemented by the Japanese Ministry of the Environment in 2005.
Sounds cool.
Okay. And it was...
Get it?
So
'cause it's cool biz.
I just got it.
Yeah, okay.
That's awful.
Sorry.
So,
It's like my catchphrase.
so salary men and men and women who work in offices, generally the attire, the dress code, suit, tie, jacket.
Yep.
If you're not wearing a suit, then like generally for women, it's like, nice slacks or a skirt, proper button down shirts.
Yep.
That's the dress code. Okay. Can't go in jeans, can't go in a t-shirt. Can't go in like khakis.
Yep.
Has to be nice, right?
Mhm.
So Japan was like, because in the summertime, the Japanese government and any local governments that are affiliated with the Japanese government,
Mhm.
they keep their air conditioning at a cool and breezy 28 degrees Celsius
In summer.
in the summer.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. Y'all have to look it up because I don't remember, but it's
I don't know Fahrenheit.
28 degrees, okay? Not cold,
No.
but it's good for
Oh,
the environment.
glad to
right?
be in the office in this hot
Good for the
summer day.
environment, right?
Yeah.
So, and they also don't turn on the air conditioning or the heating until a certain date, no matter what the temperature is. Okay? So, they decided we're going to implement this initiative called Cool Biz.
Yeah.
So, from May 1st until the end of September,
Yep.
you are allowed to forego the necktie, to forego your jacket. You can wear chino pants, sneakers, short sleeve button down shirts
Yes.
to stay cool.
People have spoken.
So Cool Biz,
Yep.
right, is the whole thing. And they also have Warm Biz, which is the opposite. But another thing about Cool Biz is that because it's not very cold in the offices,
Yeah.
people have little desk fans,
Yep.
And we always have like cold tea in the fridge.
Mhm.
And so whenever we have like a formal event that goes on in the summertime, you always have to ask, well, is it Cool Biz or not?
Yeah.
So Cool Biz. Cool Biz. Literally Cool Biz.
Mm.
Can't believe you never heard of Cool Biz.
No. See, us with like again, working at the places I've worked, it's usually been Fridays are usually a casual day.
Casual Friday.
Casual Friday.
I kind of
When I
love that.
first started with the bank, it was the whole thing like everyone had to wear ties. But then it got to the point where because we weren't working directly with customers, we were like more back end.
Mm-hmm.
It came to a point, it's like, guys, don't worry about the ties.
Nice.
Unless someone big's coming, we'll let you know. Which was rare anyway. And that was fine. And yeah, casual Fridays were great.
Mm-hmm.
Me here at work, well, it's just me. Summertime, I have pants off Fridays. That's totally different.
Pants off Fridays.
Because it's only me.
Because it's only you, yeah. So in the wintertime, because they don't turn the heat on until December 1st. December 1st. Let that sink in.
Yeah, hang on.
Remember how cold it was in November?
It was already pretty cold, man.
So we have ʀᴏᴏᴅᴜ, which are blankets that you put over your lap, lap blankets.
Mhm.
People wearing coats in the office.
Yeah.
Little mini space heaters for under your desk.
Yeah.
Humidifiers because it is so dry.
Mhm.
I literally was working and I have a really nice wool scarf.
Yeah.
That's made in Scotland. Thick, really lovely. Working in my scarf with a sweater, a shirt, heat tech.
Yeah. And
still freezing cold.
Yeah, I'd be right.
Very, very cold. So the temperature regulation, and it was the same in the other office I worked in as well, because it's all like mandated by like the Ministry of the Environment.
My little tidbit now since I made the little podcast studio in my office,
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing like computer work,
Mhm.
and because it's just been getting colder,
Yeah.
I come in here
Because it's
and I've
nice.
got like a little
nice and
heater, like
blocked off, yeah.
it's like I don't really need the aircon blowing, just a smaller heater,
Yeah.
small space, got the laptop, and it's like it's really cozy.
Yeah, I've never been cozy in my office.
Yeah. Nah,
It's ridiculously cold.
should come work here.
Yeah, really. So I didn't really talk about the dentist office very much, but I have a few short things to mention about working in a dentist office.
All
If you
right.
should ever feel the need to work at a dentist
We'll
office in
wrap up with
Japan.
the dentist story.
So the dentist office hierarchy. Usually dentist office or private practices, they're run by the 인조, which is the head of the office. So like the head dentist.
Mhm.
Then they'll have some dentists below them,
Mhm.
dental hygienists, which
Yep.
need certification.
Mhm.
There's like a national exam. And then you have the assistants who don't need certification.
Mhm.
I was an assistant because I don't have any certification.
Yep.
So you would think the hierarchy would go 인조, the
Mhm.
head, dental assistant because they're quite qualified.
Right.
Assistant.
Hmm.
When in reality, the assistants who have been there the longest, the OBs, as it were, they're on top. They make the decisions.
Okay.
So it was basically a matter of seniority. If you had been working at that office for for, let's say, 20 years, you wield so much authority that it's ridiculous. So in my experience in the office, for example, if you wanted to get a day off, if you didn't have the most legit reason, if it wasn't a wedding or something that your kid needed you for, or a funeral, you were not getting that day off. And especially because all the OBs, so the people who've been there forever, they had kids. And they were like, well, my child has a baseball game and I have to go help out. So I'm not going to be here on this day and this day and this day. And I'd be like,
Hang on.
I kind of want to go to a concert and see my friend in Tokyo. And yeah, but that's not a legitimate reason.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were kind of like looked down upon for taking days off.
Yeah.
And I had several occasions where I went to go see Panic at the Disco in Tokyo. And I said, oh, my friend's getting married in Tokyo. So I had to take a day off.
Yep.
And I also went back to the States when a friend of mine got married. And it was in the middle of winter. Cold snap, right? On the East Coast of the United States. It was about -10 during the day.
Yeah.
I caught a really wicked cold. And I got back. My flight was delayed. So I got back 3 days late because of all the delays. And they were not happy that I had taken so much time off. I had taken probably 4 days off to go back to the US. And then because my flight was delayed because of snow and this, that, and the other.
Because you can control this.
Yeah, it wasn't my fault that it took 3 days to get home.
Yeah, it was.
So, and I had to take off because I was so sick. And so I called the office and I talked to the head assistant who had been there the longest. And I said, look, I've just gotten back into Japan. I'm on my way back home right now, but I have this horrible cold and I really wanted to know if I could take off tomorrow. And she goes, well, you'll have to ask the head dentist that because I can't make that decision for you.
Now.
I'm like, he's not going to care. So I was like, all right. So I contacted him and I was like, hi, I'm really sorry. I know I've taken some time off and I have a really bad cold. And I was wondering if it'd be possible if I could take tomorrow off. And he's like, yeah, sure. Did you tell the head assistant? I was like,
oh.
He told me to tell you. So, yeah. And then the really interesting thing about the timing of that cold was it was a few days before I had my interview for City Hall, where I'd have to take off again because they wouldn't move the day of my interview. I asked them. I was the only one applying and they wouldn't move the day of the interview. That says everything you need to know about City Hall.
I love it.
So I was like, how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to take the day off? So I did something that's sort of like a hit and run on the phone. I called quite early when I knew that the assistants wouldn't be there, but reception would. Because the girls at reception are wonderful. So I called and one of the girls at reception picked up. I was like, yes. And I was like, hey, I'm really sorry. I'm not feeling well. I had to take today off. Okay, bye.
Pass it on. Nice.
And that's how I ended up getting my job at City Hall. But yeah, if the dentist office was literally, you could not take time off.
No.
There was no like set, these are your vacation days. These are how many vacation days you can use. I had 2 days off a week, but they were never next to each other. So it was always like Sunday and then like some random day in the middle of the week.
Annoying. Yeah.
So it was pretty not great. But I mean, I think of all the jobs that I've had in Japan, the civil servant job has the most perks. So office culture perks for sure. If you are trying to get a job at an office in Japan, you better make sure you read that contract and you read the room and you gauge everybody. Because you need to know like how much time you're allowed to take off. How do they feel about people taking time off? But yeah, I have a lot of days off. I get a lot of welfare perks working for the city of Hiroshima. And we're going to end this on a positive note because there's been a lot of negative, I think, this episode. Sometimes at my job, there we go. Sometimes at my job, I get asked to check English that hasn't been translated by native speakers. So they might be Japanese people, they might not be Japanese people, but often hilarious results. And I was recently checking a newsletter that they put out every month. And they were talking about how in the wintertime, people use space heaters and a lot of electricity.
Okay.
And
So this is going to be a bad translation
Yeah.
story.
So
I used to love the site called English.com. I
yeah.
think it's probably still around. But go on, sorry.
So they were talking about, you need to sort of prevent electrical fires. And they had the word in there about 4 times in this paragraph, but every time they used not the word electrical, but the word electronical. Electronical fire.
That's the worst type of fire.
But I think electronical, like it's so nonsensical as a word. It's not a word, but it sounds very cool. Electronical fire.
I like it.
It sounds like an 80s band.
This is an 80s Japanese pop band for
Like
me.
with guitars and stuff.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the
yeah,
guitars.
Guitar. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Electronic drum kit.
Yeah. Electronical
Yes.
fire. So good. I laughed at that for a good 15 minutes.
Electronical fire.
And
We need to make a logo.
Yeah, I really need to make a logo. I want a sticker that says electronical fire.
This can be done.
Yeah.
I can organize this. We need electronical fire merch.
Electronical fire. So in that newsletter, one of the lines was, and I quote, I wrote this down. The more cord you connect with, the more trouble risk increase. Trouble risk increase. That's such a great line.
Yeah.
It's so good. Trouble risk increase.
The risk increase you don't want is the trouble one.
Trouble risk. Oh, trouble risk increase.
The lyrics from the first single from the pop band
Electronical fire.
Electronical fire.
Trouble risk increase. It made my day. I was like, this is the best Christmas present I've ever received.
I love it.
It was so sometimes you just get translations that they go from bad and they whip around to being good because they're just that bad.
Yeah. No, that's class. I like that one.
I loved it.
Works for me.
Trouble risk increase.
Nice.
Yeah, it's kind of like my new favorite thing. Electronical fire and trouble risk increase. So
we'll leave it on that one because but we'll work on a logo. Definitely done.
For sure. So if you enjoyed today's episode about Japanese office culture, if you have any experience in a Japanese office, if there's anything you'd like to know about working in a Japanese office, you can contact us at thewaitingroomjpn@gmail.com. You can follow us on Instagram at thewaitingroomjpn. We post a lot of things that we've mentioned on the podcast, visuals and all of that. So make sure you give us a follow.
Yeah, if there are any pics that I put up, I'll put that over on Instagram. That's for the people listening on the podcasts.
Yeah.
People
And
that don't want to see our faces.
if you are watching us on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification.
We've hit 50 subscribers.
50 subscribers!
Nice.
Yay! Thank you so much. Thank you.
Each subscriber, man. That's one person that's watching and liking.
It means
a lot, man.
A whole 50 people. That's a lot of people to put in a room. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And we will be back with another wonderful topic. What are we going to talk about?
I don't know. Are we going to have another episode for this year? We'll try and squeeze one in.
We'll try to. Yeah, I really want to talk about Japanese Christmas. Christmas in Japan.
Maybe we can do that.
That would be really fun.
All right.
So yeah, schedule allowing.
See what we can do.
We'll see.
And keep an eye out for our movie trailer reactions.
Yeah, we're really excited to bring you some new trailer reactions as well. And let us know if there's any trailers you think we should be watching. Do you have any comments about trailers? Questions, comments, suggestions?
Let us know. Speak to us. We want to hear the voice
Send
of the people.
Send us an email. You know you want to.
All right, guys.
Thanks for watching. We'll see you again in the waiting room.
Take it easy.
Bye.